Just while we have you here, can I ask you something about something different, which is about the role and meaning of impartiality, or due impartiality, as Ofcom reminds us it technically is. I think most people acknowledge the BBC has a worldview, and however stories are covered, there is always a choice of which stories you cover. Yeah. You now have new stations coming on stream with part of their mission being to hear from marginalised and overlooked voices. And for a number of years now, we've had radio stations with individual slots on them with more of a political hue. Lord Birt has spoken of the anomaly of the impartiality rules. I just wonder, from your long view perspective, how did we get here, and how do you interpret, or did you interpret, rules on impartiality at the time? At the time, I mean when you were in office.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a really important question, and as Mr. Nicholson would tell you, this was an issue which I was particularly hot on. I would say that impartiality is a goal. I think that almost every journalist that works for the BBC, almost every editor who works for the BBC has an understanding of it and does their level best to be impartial on the major matters of the day. But when I was directed, but it's a dynamic. It needs dynamic supervision. When I was Director General, there wouldn't be a day went by when I was watching or listening to our BBC output where I would not have seen opportunities to improve the BBC. And this is not because BBC journalists are wicked. We've talked about one who was deeply wicked, but there are genuinely testing issues around this, and it needs constant supervision to ensure that all sides of an argument are understood and rigorously tested. And if you ask me, did the BBC in my day always do that? It did it imperfectly, and as my wife would tell you, she has to hear me at breakfast or watching programmes at night and conducting the running commentary on how I can see opportunities to improve the BBC's journalism in exactly
we all
the same
get
way
that
I was able to 25 years ago.
Thank you. Can I just ask you then, so when you see the emergence of these new formats, do you regard that as a welcome addition to diversity in media, or something that's just inevitable in the internet age, or as a failure of the BBC to reflect and hear from all voices?
Well, it depends what you mean. I mean, for instance, I have the highest regard for, I may not always agree with him, but I have the highest regard for Andrew Neil as a journalist. I think he's absolutely formidable, and I don't expect Mr. Nicholson liked his famous interview with Nicola Sturgeon. I mean, he is formidable. And I welcome a world where there is real diversity of journalism and where every perspective is tested. But let's face it, the BBC is one of the most cherished institutions, not just in the UK, but in the whole world. It has the most respected news brand in the whole world, and that is not because it always observes perfect impartiality, but because the whole world can see that it tries, that it is honest and decent. And this sad event that we're discussing today is a blot on that long and honourable tradition. But there, I hope, will always be a role for a BBC, as we see in the pandemic, which is doing its level best to understand what's going on, braid that understanding, to test governments, to test opposition, and so on. It is utterly invaluable part of our national landscape.
And finally, both you and Paul have spoken a lot about the issues around running a very large organisation. I think we all understand that being at the apex of such an organisation, you can't know everything that's going on. But in most organisations, there are some matters which would break through that complexity. And in particular, when we talk about something like the rehiring in this case, you would think that would be one. I just wonder, the number of times that you and Lord Hall had to plead the size of the organisation as a reason for what happened. I just wonder if you might now conclude it's just too big.
Well, I wouldn't conclude that, because, as I've already said, I think this is an enormously valuable cultural asset for the country and indeed the world. And,
but it could be a number. It could be a number of slightly smaller, very valuable assets.
No, but you don't. What bits would you cut off? You know, the BBC radio is in stunning condition at the moment. The television channels, its dedication to drama, to comedy. My wife and I have been watching Spring Watch. No, nobody else in the world does anything wonderful as Spring Watch. Local journalism is in decline. Every night I watch the BBC's local journalism. I wouldn't cut any of that off. I passionately believe that the BBC needs to be supported and well funded. And let's face it, it's taken some mighty hits over the last 10 years. And I'm deeply concerned about its future.
There's a difference between broken off and broken up. I was asking about the size of the organisation, not whether all parts of current outputs had a role. Thank you, Chairman.